Hey there, movie fans. Here we are with a brand new episode of FYC. I'm joined as always by the amazing Perri Nemiroff and the mighty Jeff Snyder. You know, there's so much instability in this business right now. So we're just going to go back and forth between the Emmys and the Oscars because we still have a whole lot to talk about. And it's just going to make this whole season, both seasons, really, really interesting. So now we are back to movies. Not only are we going to weigh in on the whole Barbenheimer phenomenon, but of course, we are going to discuss the Oscar chances for Barbenheimer, of course, for Barbie and for Oppenheimer specifically, separately, because Barbenheimer is two movies, not just one, although it certainly feels like one. So first of all, let's talk about the box office. Here we are. Barbie, after just 10 days, making $775 million worldwide, just days away as of this recording from passing $1 billion. Perri, what is your take on Barbie box office?
So when I was doing my interview with Margot Robbie, she brings up during the interview that when she was pitching the idea of Barbie to the studio, she joked that it was going to make $1 billion. And when I heard her say that, I'm like, that's really funny. And she said it in a way where it's like, I know it's not realistic, but I had to do what I had to do to get my movie made. Now look where we are. This movie's going to make $1 billion.
Well, it's going to make $1 billion. The question, I think this is a valid question and not a far-fetched question, is can it make $2 billion? Jeff Snyder, take it away.
I don't think it'll hit $2 billion, but $1.5 billion maybe within reach, given all the repeat business that I expect this to do, with particularly with young girls seeing it with different groups of friends and things like that.
All right, so now here's the thing. Looking closer at the numbers. So first of all, of course, everyone's, just like last year, everyone was talking about how Top Gun Maverick saved movies. Now, of course, this year they're talking about how Barbie and Oppenheimer have saved the movies, and they definitely did. But what's after Barbenheimer? I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is a movie that I love, and I know Perri, you loved it too, and it's getting great reviews, but is it going to get steamrolled by Barbenheimer? Because it's, as of this recording, it will have already opened. And also looking at the rest of the summer into the fall, there's really no competition. So I don't think it's far-fetched to maybe sort of see a $2 billion cross in the mark, because, okay, so after 10 days, the domestic total for Barbie is $351 million. That's after 10 days. Last summer, after 10 days, the domestic total for Top Gun Maverick was $295 million. So that's just domestic. So Barbie is way ahead of Top Gun Maverick domestically. So I think it's also ahead of Top Gun Maverick worldwide. So if Maverick ended up with about 1.5 billion, Barbie, I think, is going to go past that. And, if not 2 billion, maybe 1.8 billion. I think it's definitely going to make more than Maverick. Perri, what do you think?
I'm just looking at the list here of what has crossed 2 billion and what came close to it. I have a hard time imagining Barbie surpassing Spider-Man No Way Home, which came in just under 2 billion. But as you were kind of breaking that down, it does kind of amuse me that Barbie could surpass Avengers, Lion King, and Jurassic World and wind up being maybe the 8th highest earner of all time. I mean, I feel like since day one, especially since the trailer was released, and I mean, even before that, I guess even when they released first look images, it always felt like this movie was going to pop. But I think that when I imagined this movie popping, it was more along the lines of, like having a $60 million opening weekend and just doing really well and justifying its budget and all that kind of stuff. Not necessarily trending towards becoming one of the highest earners ever, but the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm starting to believe that is the reality here.
Look, this is history. I mean, we've never seen anything like this.
Ever. I don't think that it will hit it, Scott, and I'll tell you why. It doesn't. It's not doing the large format screen business that Top Gun Maverick did, right? Because it's not IMAX screens. And the other thing, and this is the big one, Top Gun Maverick got to where it was because Paramount and Tom Cruise resisted putting it on home video.
Yeah.
Right? It got a very long run. I don't know that Warner Brothers is going to hold out as long as Paramount did, as far as keeping that movie in theaters exclusively.
See, I think that
Oh.
Warner Brothers will maybe even take a page from the Paramount handbook, looking at Maverick and say, you know what, let's just keep this going. Why would they take it out of theaters? I mean, there's no way they're going to be turned down money. It's like Barbie is printing pink dollar bills here. It's I think that this. Look, overall, I just think that all of the routines and the trends that that we have looked at with this movie business up until the pandemic, all bets are off. Nobody knows anything. And, we've just been seeing a whole lot of stuff that it really defies, with sort of projections and, what people are predicting for the box office. But the question is, Jeff Snyder, so last year, if Tom Cruise saved movie theaters, and that's a quote from Steven Spielberg himself. So you would think that after coming back for another summer with a Mission Impossible film, and these movies are great and they do really well at the box office, you would think that Tom Cruise back at the box office would be kind of like a victory lap. But why is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning underperforming, Jeff?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't really know. It doesn't quite add up to me.
Yeah, it's really weird. So after
Perry's gonna be mad at me.
Your internet connection is a little off, Jeff. So we just missed about 90% of what you said.
Oh, you didn't hear
So
it at all.
I don't know what I need to be mad at you about.
Okay,
but I'm sure it's something reasonable.
I think there's an issue with the casting. I think that who is Tom Cruise going up against in this movie? No one really knows Isai Morales, as good as he is in the movie. I think that they could have used a bigger name for the villain, and frankly, I think that they could have used more of a name for the new female lead instead of Haley Atwell.
Oh, yes, I do strongly disagree with that statement. I think Haley Atwell was the perfect person to cast. If you want to talk about widespread recognition, all you have to do is look at the MCU amongst her many other accomplishments. And then also it's about what she actually did with the role. I mean, I do feel like a lot of people who did go to see that movie probably walked out talking about her, maybe even more so than Tom Cruise, because it was very impressive how many scenes she was able to steal opposite him, and also that gigantic, impressive ensemble. But ultimately, what I think it comes down to is, and we've said this, but we said this in this exact episode, I don't think any box office trends matter anymore.
I agree.
And I obviously think that big bucks can be well earned in a lot of cases. And I think the marketing campaign, let's say for Barbie, was very strong and paved a very clear line towards massive success. But I do think there are a lot of situations where it's a bit of a crapshoot. The whole distribution model has changed. People's priorities in terms of what they're watching in theaters versus at home is entirely different. So I can't look at something like Top Gun Maverick and say, oh, well, if Tom Cruise did that last year, he's going to do it again this year with another movie. And I think it's really unfair, and it makes me sad that that Dead Reckoning Part 1 is so damn good, and it didn't make the money to justify the quality of the film. But I think this is just the way things are now. This is why I don't do box office predictions anymore. Everything feels like a crapshoot where something can pop or something that's really good can tank. And it's not that there's no rhyme or reason, but it's very difficult to have like a trackable reason that applies to all of the projects anymore.
Well, I think, if there are two things I can sort of circle around with why Death Reckoning didn't do well, and Perri just disappeared, but that's okay. I think for one thing is the running time. People knew that the movie was a little on the long side, more than 2 hours and 41 minutes. And also having a part 1 in the title may have deterred people from going oh, I don't know. Do I have to, if I see this and I got to see the next one, just call it something without a number to it, because it's just, you're asking for people to make a bigger commitment, which I know it's a stupid reason to kind of pinpoint on why a
No,
movie
it's
is
not.
doing well.
I think you're spot on, Mance. I think at the part you're absolutely right that they shouldn't have announced like a part one or whatever. Just give it a different title. The other thing I would say is, Sound of Freedom. That movie doesn't exist. That's like 100 or 150 domestic at the box office. All those moviegoers may have gone to see Mission Impossible. Could have added another 100 million to its domestic cume. So
yeah, talk about like nobody knows anything. I mean, who would have
Right.
thought that Sound of Freedom would be, making more than most of the tentpole films like, The Flash and, Fast 10. But just looking closer at the numbers. So after 19 days in theaters, Dead Reckoning made $139 million domestic, which is not great. Fallout, the previous Mission Impossible, which was released on July 27, 2018, after the same period of 19 days, it made $166.7 million. So 139 for Dead Reckoning versus 167 basically for Fallout. So obviously Fallout did much better, and that was also 5 years ago.
They underestimated Barbenheimer too. Like with those movies coming so quickly on the heels, Barbie outpaced initial estimates by like $100 million.
Yeah, exactly. But the other thing with Dead Reckoning is that overseas, it's actually doing really well. It's made up to 310 million as of this past weekend. Overseas, its worldwide totals $448.3 million as of this past weekend. So the highest grossing Mission Impossible film worldwide is Fallout from 2018. That made $791.6 million worldwide. So I mean, Dead Reckoning is not going to make more than that. I guess it's kind of in line with how these mission movies usually do. But anyway, I just think that unfortunately Fallout cost 177 million to make, and Dead Reckoning cost almost 300 million to make. Probably another 150 million to market. So it needs to make like $900 million worldwide to break even. That's not going to happen. Anyway.
Well, that leans into another common problem we have now, which is overspending on films and making it nearly impossible for a movie to turn a profit if it's anything less than monumentally successful. And that's not a sustainable business model.
Well, I agree with you, but Perri, a lot of the reason why Dead Reckoning and Indiana Jones cost so much damn money was because of all the protocols they had to keep in place while they were filming during the worst of the pandemic. Otherwise, I don't think Mission would have cost this much.
That is part of it. I do think, obviously, I know that COVID protocols did up certain budgets, but I also think there are many examples, especially this summer, of instances where significant portions of those budgets could have been cut back, or you could have figured out creative solutions with a little less money even than what they wound up spending.
Well, no question about it. But the big question is, back to the top of the show, what we talked about is the Oscar chances for Barbenheimer. So let's start with Barbie. So Perri, let's just sort of go through some of the categories that you think Barbie has a real chance to get nominated.
Well, I'll tell you the first two that... Oh, Indy. I feel bad talking about how bad Indy did at the box office when this Indy is so cute and would probably make all the money in the world at the box office.
Yes, absolutely he would. He's such a good puppy.
If only FYC was on the big screen making those box office dollars and you held up Indy, like that would be the recipe for success.
Yeah. Puppy dogs and ice cream.
So in my Twitter reaction to Barbie, the first two things that I mentioned were how incredible the production and costume design those two things were in the movie. And obviously there's still a significant amount of movies to come this year. I feel like it's going to win both categories, and I'm feeling kind of good saying that, right? Like, I'm not just talking about getting nominated. Like, I think it is going to wind up being a front runner to win in both of those categories. And I'll throw in one more category where I think it's got a very, very good chance of not just getting nominated, but actually winning. And it's Best Original Song. That Billie Eilish song is everywhere. It is great, tied to the actual film. It is also like a damn beautiful song, even if you're listening to it casually outside of the movie theater, I just have a feeling that those three are going to wind up being likely wins for the movie.
That's a very, very fair assessment. Jeff, what's your take on production design, costume design, song, not just to get nominated, but potentially win?
Song, I mean, they're gonna have to sort of figure out which songs they're even submitting, because you don't want to submit really more than like two or three, like two, really. I wouldn't submit a third one. But yeah, no, I think it has a great chance in that category. I think it has a better chance with costumes than production design. Obviously, the production design is super impressive, but I think it's going to have a tough time competing with, stuff like the Scorsese movie, where they had to recreate, this completely different period. So as impressive as all that stuff is for Barbie, and I could see a slew of nominations, I'm not sure that I necessarily see wins.
Okay, well, I actually am going to agree with Perri on this, not just for song, but especially costume design, and most definitely for production design. So the production designer for Barbie is Sarah Greenwood, and she is a 6-time Oscar nominee for production design with films like Darkest Hour, Beauty and the Beast, and Atonement, to name a few. And I'm just looking at the trailer before Barbie even opened, I went, oh my God, this is like a shoo-in for production design. But so I'm leaning towards those movies for wins. But of course, there are other categories in which Barbie could and should be nominated. You want to throw other just potential nominees into the mix here, Perri?
So I do think we have to seriously consider Best Picture.
Yes.
I think that is a real possibility at this point for a nomination. You can't say no to a Margot Robbie performance in one of what's going to wind up being one of the highest earners of the year, if not the highest earner of the year.
Yeah.
Best Actress, and then would Ryan Gosling be? He'd be supporting. So I do think there's a significant amount of talk about his performance right now, and it does seem like it's going to have a real good chance of getting a nomination in that category as well. And then the one I would really like to see more than any nomination out there, I think, is seeing Greta Gerwig get a Best Director nomination as well. I feel like there's a lot of things happening in this movie that are obviously very valuable contributions, but something like this does not work unless you have someone at the helm who could really, turn this wild idea into some sort of cohesive vision. And she definitely wound up doing that. So I'd really like to see her nominated for her work in particular.
I think Ryan Gosling would be submitted for lead actor.
Lead?
Because I think he's got just as much screen time as Margot does, because for the second half of the movie, there are stretches of time where Margot isn't in it as much as she is in the first half of the movie, and Ryan is. But either way, I think Ryan is fantastic. And of course, I mean, Margot is magnificent. I mean, this is like the role she was born to play. She's fantastic. So Jeff, what do you think about Best Picture? And I do want to say, whether it's adapted screenplay or original screenplay, they need to figure this out. I think it gets nominated there because of all the messages about empowerment and identity and the existentialism. It's an ambitious screenplay, one that you wouldn't expect for a movie called Barbie. So Jeff, what's your take on pick, director, screenplay, actor, and actress?
First of all, I think that it is going to be run an original screenplay.
Okay.
Having read up on the situation and everything, I think that is what the classification it'll ultimately get. Let me flip it back on you guys. Of these 4 nominations, Ryan Gosling, Margot Robbie, Greta Gerwig for Best Director, and then Best Picture, which is the most likely? Because I think Best Picture is the most.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I agree. I
Not
think
just because he has as many nominees, but I just think Greta Gerwig certainly has a chance, particularly given the success of the movie. But it's just not a typical awards title. I think that Ryan Gosling has better awards chances than Margot Robbie. I don't really see that performance getting nominated. As good as she is, I think that there's a lot of good female performances on the horizon this fall. So she'll be in contention, but I have a hard time thinking that she's going to get nominated for that.
I think, in terms of director, I mean, even though it's a completely different film than Top Gun Maverick, just in terms of just the mass appeal of both of these movies, Maverick did not get nominated for director, but of course it did get nominated for picture. So that's why, I mean, I agree with both of you that the most likely of these other nominations we're talking about, I think picture is the easiest one to sort of pin down and say, yes, this is definitely getting nominated. But I think that between director and screenplay, because Greta Gerwig wrote the screenplay with Noah Baumbach, I think that there is just because sometimes the Academy might be a little more, snobby when it comes to Best Director, but because screenplay has adapted an original, whatever this is, I think it might have a better chance to get nominated for screenplay than for director. I don't know. I mean, I'm just sort of talking off the top of my head. You think, Jeff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what about something like cinematography? Because
it's because all these other awards contenders, whether it's Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, they're adapted. So I think that original will have a little bit more room to play with. I'm sorry. Yeah, I interrupted your question. What were you saying?
Oh no, I was going to say cinematography. So Rodrigo Prieto, who was the DP on Barbie, is also the DP on Killers of the Flower Moon, which is, as of now, still hitting theaters in October. Yeah, I know. But
no to cinematography, no to editing. Some of these big Best Picture bellwethers. I don't think that Barbie is going to be up for that.
Perri?
I'm with Jeff on that. I don't think it's going to wind up getting anything in those categories. I mean, it might be, on like the B tier of discussions when the time does come, but I think ultimately those categories won't pan out for it.
Okay,
getting 6 or 7 nods would be great, but it's not going to be a movie with 10, 11, 12 nominations.
Really? If you had told me Barbie got a single Oscar nomination last year, I would have been like, holy shit, really? That's great.
Yeah. These are good. This is a really, really good conversation to have. And also, obviously, hair and makeup is another nomination I could see Barbie getting. So you're talking, okay, so just in terms of nominations, you got picture, director, screenplay, actress, actor, let's see, production design for sure, that's 6. Hair and makeup, that's 7. Costume design, that's 8. And you're right. That's like 8 nominations.
That's with the acting nominations, which I don't think will happen. So
we'll see. We'll see.
see.
I mean, what I started to think about for a blueprint, just to compare it, because we brought it up, is something like Top Gun Maverick, which also came out earlier in the year. It was a major box office success. Obviously, that one's momentum fizzled out closer to Oscar day. But I do think that if Warner Brothers mounts an even stronger campaign for particular categories, and I do think they're going to do that, we could wind up seeing like a similar amount of nomination success, if not more, for this movie.
I just think that when you have a movie like Top Gun Maverick, and Maverick himself isn't out there doing, the campaigning, which is now like a sort of necessary for the Oscar season, Margot Robbie will absolutely be out there doing everything.
And look at how good Greta Gerwig and that ensemble has been with promoting this movie. I mean, obviously, like Warner Brothers mounted a massive campaign for the theatrical release, and they all had to be involved in it to an extent, given contracts and stuff like that. But really, in every single interview that I've watched, they're given 110%, and they're doing exactly what they need to do in order to encourage people to see the movie. I have to imagine they're going to do the same exact thing in terms of encouraging voters to vote for the movie.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the other half of Barbenheimer.
The other question, though, real quick, Scott.
Yes.
Do you run Gosling in lead or supporting?
I run him in lead. I think he is a lead. I think he's in the movie just as much as Margot is.
He is a lead, but I think you definitely run him in supporting, and because I mean, you try to him out to be the Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder or Melissa McCarthy in Bridesmaids. You're not getting a lead nomination for Ken.
I'm with Jeff, supporting.
I agree with that assessment, but I don't think Ryan Gosling submits himself for supporting actor.
Okay,
we'll see. All right, let's move on to the other half of Barbenheimer, and that is the Big Bang itself, Oppenheimer. Domestic total after 10 days, 174.6 million. Worldwide total after 10 days, more than $400 million, turning out to be Christopher Nolan's biggest non-Batman film ever. So the question here, Jeff, what are the super obvious wins you think Oppenheimer might get?
I'll give it best sound.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good one.
I
Sound.
can feel that sound in my pants in that IMAX screening.
Too much information, but okay.
My seat was rumbling.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, seeing that in IMAX 70 millimeter was amazing.
Yeah, you could feel that in your legs. So I think that sound, and which goes the one that goes hand in hand in that with is best score.
Also, visual effects. I mean, that it does have visual effects, and it's has it throughout the movie. And yes, best score, absolutely. Ludwig Göransson did the score, and he's an Oscar winner for Black Panther. So that bodes well. Perri, what about you? Like, what's like a win for Oppenheimer?
I don't feel as confident about Oppenheimer winning things as I do Barbie. I feel like obviously both are huge successes right now, but I do think it's a little, and we've discussed this with other movies in the past where there's just something more easily watchable about what is it, a 2-hour Barbie movie with all this like fun color and energy versus a 3-hour epic about like a fairly miserable topic, to be frank about it. I do have a feeling that the movie is going to do quite well with nominations. I mean, after I just said this about box office, I'm going to lean on current trends with Oscar nominations and wins and just say that, like Barbie obviously does have important messages that mean something, but I have a feeling that people are going to want to celebrate like the fun and the good times and the vibrancy more so than they will content like Oppenheimer. So I can't say I'm as confident about wins here.
All right. Well, getting back to nominations, Jeff, what are like the sure thing nominations that Oppenheimer is going to get? I mean,
two acting nominations in the bag for Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr. 100%. They're both getting in. I think that the only real question is whether Emily Blunt could get a supporting nomination. I was not particularly impressed with Emily Blunt until she gets her big moment later in the film. I thought that she was kind of wasted. I mean, literally and figuratively, she's kind of just playing a drunk through that whole movie. And then, but that last scene does have enough to get her over the hump, I think, for her first nomination.
That's her for your consideration moment. Hey, you're enough, I see. All right, Perri, what about you in terms of actor, supporting actress, and maybe, probably, most likely more?
Yeah, I'm with Jeff on the read in terms of the acting categories. I think I might bet against Emily Blunt though. I mean, there's a lot of performances in that category I have my eye on going forward, and the fact that there isn't some significant groundswell of support behind her work at this particular point when the movie is soaring at the box office, I get this feeling like it's gonna fizzle out and she won't get in. The obvious nomination for me is the dual nomination of a Best Picture nomination and a Best Director nomination, which I believe he got for Dunkirk as well. I mean, that seems like a no-brainer. It also seems like, to predict what our conversation might be like in the months to come, or even after nominations are announced, I have a feeling we're going to be talking about Oppenheimer and Christopher Nolan being middle of the pack for much of the season. And then depending on how things go, he'll either rise up or slip out of the possibility for winning.
I agree. I think it's a sure thing that the movie gets Best Picture and Best Director, and also adapted screenplay, which Nolan wrote. So I think those three are absolutely positively sure things. I think supporting actor for Downey is absolutely a sure thing. Like Jeff mentioned, score. I think cinematography for Hoyt van Hoytema, Oscar nominee for Dunkirk, gets nominated.
Editing too.
Yeah.
Editing, definitely editing. What about the crafts like production design, costume design, hair and makeup, Perri?
Those all seem on the bubble right now for me. Not necessarily the things that I would consider sure things, but I'm also not ruling them out just yet. I mean, those are the particular categories where I'm like, I need to wait and see what else comes out this year, and also what the studio winds up pushing the most.
All right, Jeff, what do you think?
For sure, production design. I do think that it will get production design. I don't think it will get, costumes. I don't necessarily know if it'll get hair and makeup.
All right, so here's the deal. So we got We got picture 1, director 2, adapted screenplay 3, actor potentially 4,
Yes.
supporting actor 5.
Yeah. Let's leave ones off.
Take Emily Blunt off. Perri.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm with
All right.
Jeff on that.
So supporting actor is 5, score is 6, and then you got cinematography is 7, right? And then sound is 8,
visual effects
9, editing 10.
Yep.
All right. And then production design is 11. And not okay. So if we leave off costume design, hair and makeup, and if we leave off Emily Blunt, then we are looking at up to 11 nominations for Oppenheimer. And here's the other thing to consider, Jeff and Perri and everybody, is that we don't know what's happening with the strike. I mean, there was a little bit of movement, a little bit of news just yesterday that apparently the members of the producers, guild, for not the producers guild, but the producers who were striking against the actors and the writers, want to get back to the table, and soon. That's a quote from an insider, is that they want to get on with it, so to speak. But there's still a long way to go before that actually happens, especially when it comes to resolving 2 strikes. So whether it comes to movies moving off the schedule, which is happening already, if that happens, Perri, does that increase the chances for a movie like Oppenheimer to not just get nominated, but to maybe even win?
Without a doubt. The second you take some of the contenders we're eyeing for the back half of the year off the calendar, yeah, everything that's come out thus far sees its chances increased.
Jeff?
We've lost one movie, right? Challengers, which moved to 2024. Other than that, what you're seeing is the studio's specialty labels and stuff dating movies. I mean, Jeff Nichols' The Bike Riders is in December. Sean Durkin's The Iron Claw. Saltburn got a Thanksgiving week release date. So it seems like studios are moving ahead with this award season.
Yeah, they are. No, they definitely are. It's just, again, talk about, between trying to predict the box office and trying to predict a post COVID landscape where 2 guilds are striking. Who the hell knows anything? But it sure does lead to interesting conversations. And anything else that either you want to weigh in before we bring this episode of FYC to a close?
I'll weigh in on one thing.
Go ahead.
I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem should get an Oscar nomination for Best Animated Feature. I need to say it out loud to speak it into existence. I will demand that it happens. And if it doesn't happen, I will be very sad.
I agree completely. I mean, I think a Spider-Verse 2 is still looking like a front runner to win. But when I saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, I actually said to myself, wait, not so fast, because the animation for Turtles is amazing and it's just a great movie, period. I think that absolutely gets in for a nomination for animated feature. Anything else you want to bring up, Jeff?
No, I think we're good.
I think we're good. We're always good when you join us for FYC. Thank you for sticking with us and rolling with the punches on a wild and crazy dual season of Oscars and Emmys. Make sure you share FYC on your social media platforms so more people can watch us through these next, 8 months as we go back and forth. Make sure you scroll down below and subscribe to Perri's YouTube channel. Make sure you comment below. Let us know what you think of our predictions for the Oscar nominations chances and maybe wins for both Barbie and Oppenheimer. Let us know why you think Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning isn't doing well and what you thought of the movie, because I love this movie. I think we all love it. But anyway, that brings us to the close of a brand new episode of FYC. And until next time, everybody, FY, see you later.